It's our Shawn. We'll be talking about the Corporate Transparency Act today. This is causing a lot of confusion. There's still confusion going on around this. I was just in a forum about a week ago, and people were confused about whether the stay was on, whether it was off. I'm still seeing emails come in about what to do about the Corporate Transparency Act. So here we are, January 7th, 2025. I am going to kind of give you a history of what has developed so far. We'll build from there, and then I'll tell you kind of where we are now, state of play, and what we're talking about, right? So I'm a lawyer. I work with this stuff with my clients. I get a lot of calls and emails about it because I am a business lawyer. Obviously, this isn't individual legal advice for you. This is just for educational purposes. Consult with your own legal counsel, but we'll get you the general idea of what's going on here today. And I've seen a lot of questions. Very confusing for lawyers even what's happened. I've seen a number of attorneys confused about it. So for those of you that aren't attorneys, I can see this being super confusing, and we're going to simplify it today. We're going to break it down in a way we like to do on this channel to kind of make things digestible for that business owner or business leader, which is hopefully you. All right, well, there was a big case out there. So the Corporate Transparency Act, if we step back, was enacted many years ago during Trump's first term, right? We're on the eve of Trump's second term, assuming everything goes to plan here, coming up just very shortly. But during his first term, they passed this over his veto. So Trump was not a supporter of this bill. And that will become important as we do an analysis in a bit. Fast forward, we had the COVID things and all these other things. And eventually, after several delays, late 2023, FinCEN, which is a division of the Department of Treasury here in the United States, said, we're going to let this thing go live on January 1, 2024, and they started requiring filings. And of course, that started a rash of lawsuits. There was one successful lawsuit for a particular business organization group. The members of that group had a win early in 2024, and then other lawsuits kept moving. And then we were coming up on a deadline of January 1, 2025, which is when FinCEN said that basically all existing companies that had been set up prior to January 1, 2024, all the companies that were covered by this law, which is most small businesses in the U.S., we're going to have to deal with this. Most small businesses that are formed as an entity, an LLC, corporation, etc. So January 1, 2025 was looking like the deadline. Well, on December 3rd, we got a decision out of Texas in a case called Texas Top Cop Shop, Inc. You can't make these names up. Versus Garland, who is the U.S. federal official, right? So we get Texas Top Cop Shop, and the judge there did a very long analysis of the U.S. Constitution, why he didn't like this law, why he thought it overstepped constitutional boundaries, and from there he said this is, presumably unconstitutional. Still have to have more proceedings in this case. But for now, we're going to say that nobody in the entire U.S. has to comply with this law. FinCEN did eventually recognize that. They put an update on their website, said, we're appealing this, but for now you don't have to file. Fast forward, and this is where it starts to get confusing. December 23rd, the Court of Appeals steps in, issues a ruling saying we're removing the stay. We're going to require, we're basically going to allow the enforcement of the deadlines and the penalties because we don't think that, we don't know where this is going in the appeal. We're going to let this law go back into effect. And so then everybody started reversing course, and there were new deadlines set by FinCEN, and they were tiered depending on who you were and when you filed, right? So a lot of people had a January 13th deadline under this new FinCEN ruling after the December 23rd ruling by the court. Fast forward just 3 days over Christmas, day after Christmas, December 26th, 2024, we get a reversal of the reversal. So a different panel of judges in the Court of Appeals, which is very unusual, they then step in and say put the stay in there, right? So this law hasn't been declared unconstitutional, hasn't been declared ineffective. It has been stayed, basically put on hold while the litigation moves forward. Now, appellate litigation can move very fast and very slow. In general, it takes a long time, and then big events will happen and it'll move quickly. At this point, if you go to the FinCEN website, and they have a whole page dedicated to the Corporate Transparency Act or the BOIR reporting, and they will say they've recognized this stay. So they are saying they cannot enforce this. They are allowing people to voluntarily file. There may be some percentage of people that just say, hey, I don't care, I'm going to go ahead and file. But they have recognized the stay. They have recognized the non-enforcement of the penalties. Why you're probably here is you're probably like, where does this go next? What does this mean to me as a business owner? Unfortunately, there's obviously political aspects of this. There's appellate courts. Courts are always unpredictable. Lawyers that tell you otherwise, we don't know what they're going to do. Anytime you get something in front of a judge, we don't know what the outcome's going to be, so we don't know what's going to happen next. But we can make some pretty good guesses. The appeal is probably going to take some time. Could get suddenly reversed. We could have some hearings in it, but usually these appeal things take a while. We got a surprise between December 23rd and December 26th, right? So that was a surprise. But moving forward, we probably are in the standard appellate process where it's going to take time for both sides to brief, to make their case, and to move forward. Now, if this somehow gets reversed prior to January 20th, I will expect FinCEN to try to put short deadlines on people to try to get filings, because FinCEN knows that January 20th is a critical date for whether this law lives or dies, in my opinion. January 20th, of course, being the inauguration of the new president, Trump, coming in, and Trump will presumably want to take the teeth out of this law. So he'll put new people at the head of the Department of Treasury. They will come down and they will probably either remove the enforcement of this or make it a very light enforcement or make it very easy to comply or give a lot more exemptions. Something's probably going to change after January 20th. Now, we may have to wait. We may have a situation where the new leadership of the Department of Treasury doesn't want to look overly political. They may wait and see if this thing dies in the courts on its own merit before they jump in. But I think there's a very real possibility from the political side that if this thing goes into effect, it will then be declared ineffective, through administrative process. Not necessarily declared ineffective, but maybe made effective with less teeth, maybe not enforced, maybe very low penalties or fines. Some way, shape, or form, I think perhaps the Trump administration will take the teeth out of this. But January 20th is a very important date. What happens between now and January 20th, in my opinion, is going to be very dispositive about where this law goes in the future. So we got to keep watching it here. My clients are monitoring it. I have a number of clients who we're waiting because we kept hoping for updated guidance and more information from FinCEN, because there are still some ambiguities, particularly when there are complex ownership structures. So many clients were waiting to get updates and to see what was happening. Those are generally waiting to see what happens with this law and see if this goes back into effect. So everybody's kind of on the sidelines right now. That would be my general recommendation. I don't see the point of voluntarily filing since the penalties are removed. So, you might want to just to get it over with. I've actually heard another lawyer give that advice, telling clients just to go ahead and file this thing and not worry about it. I don't see the point of making an unnecessary filing to have additional information out there. Of course, this is supposed to go into a secure federal database, but we know there's always database issues and breaches from time to time. So the more information you put out there about your company, the more risk you have. So, a lot of people are going to say wait. The only problem with waiting is you don't know when this is going to change. And that's the real risk to waiting, is if the court would reverse, if this would go into effect, you've got to keep keeping an eye on this thing to see when that new effective date or that new filing deadline would be. And that filing deadline might be very soon. It might be far out, and a lot of it's going to depend on court ruling. FinCEN has pretty much showed us that they want to have a short timeline. When this was reversed on December 23rd, they gave a 3-week extension to get your filings in. So not a lot of time there. So if we get another reversal, will they do 3 weeks again? Will they do 2 weeks? We don't know what they're going to do at that point. But of course, we then have potentially a new administration. So the biggest risk is what happens between now and January 20th. If there's some type of reversal or court event between now and then, a lot will happen. And this thing could go into effect with a short deadline and cause a lot of confusion. Odds are this litigation is going to drag on for a while. probably past January 20th, in which case it becomes much more political. If you have questions, let me know about this or other business law topics, suggestions for videos, go ahead and drop them below. Appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you for another video soon. It's Shawn signing off.